Welcome back to our channel, where we delve into the intriguing realm of epidemiology and outbreak investigation. In the complex world of public health, an outbreak investigation is akin to a thrilling detective story. It involves tracking down elusive culprits, piecing together scattered clues, and racing against time to prevent further harm. But unlike a detective story, the stakes here are incredibly real and high, impacting the health and lives of potentially millions of people. Outbreak investigations are essential in understanding the who, what, when, where, and why of an outbreak. They provide critical insights that help us control the spread of infectious diseases and inform strategies to prevent future outbreaks. These investigations are governed by a set of principles, each playing a unique role in the process, much like the chapters of a detective novel. These investigations not only serve to control the current outbreak but also provide invaluable insights for preventing future ones. The first principle we will explore is surveillance. Picture surveillance as a vigilant sentry at the gate of a grand old castle. Just as the sentry's duty is to scan the horizon for any signs of threat, surveillance in the world of epidemiology is all about vigilance. It's about keeping a watchful eye on the ebb and flow of diseases. It's about monitoring health data and looking for anything out of the ordinary. Any sudden spike in flu cases in the summer, or a cluster of food poisoning cases in a particular neighborhood, could be the first hint of an outbreak. But surveillance isn't just about watching, it's also about understanding. It involves the systematic collection, analysis, and interpretation of health data. It's about spotting patterns, identifying trends, and understanding the bigger picture. Is the number of cases increasing, decreasing, or staying the same? Are certain groups more affected than others? Are cases clustered in specific locations or spread out? The answers to these questions help epidemiologists understand the scope of the outbreak. They provide clues about the disease's transmission, its severity, and the populations most at risk. They also guide the response, informing decisions about where to send resources, whether to issue public health warnings, and when to implement control measures. But perhaps the most critical role of surveillance is its ability to detect potential outbreaks early. The earlier an outbreak is detected, the sooner control measures can be implemented, and the more lives can be saved. In this sense, surveillance is not just a sentry, but also a guardian, protecting populations from the devastating impacts of outbreaks. Surveillance, however, is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It must be tailored to the disease in question, the population at risk, and the local context. It requires robust health information systems, skilled personnel, and strong coordination across different sectors and levels of government. In the end, surveillance is about more than just data. It's about vigilance. It's about understanding. And most importantly, it's about action. Because when it comes to outbreaks, knowledge is power, but only if it leads to action. And so, surveillance stands as our vigilant sentry, always on watch, always ready to sound the alarm. Surveillance allows us to identify potential outbreaks, understand their scope, and respond swiftly to halt their progress. Once a potential outbreak is detected, the second principle comes into play: case definition. As we navigate through the complex labyrinth of outbreak investigation, having a clear and precise case definition serves as our indispensable blueprint. It is the guiding compass that leads us to accurately identify those who are truly affected by the outbreak. Imagine you're an architect, tasked with constructing a skyscraper. Without a detailed blueprint, you would struggle to distinguish between the various components that make up the building. Similarly, in an outbreak, without a case definition, it becomes exceedingly challenging to distinguish true cases from those that merely display similar symptoms. Much like how a blueprint outlines the design of a building, a case definition outlines who is considered a case in an outbreak. It does this by defining specific clinical and epidemiological criteria. Clinical criteria might include symptoms, signs, and laboratory findings. Epidemiological criteria, on the other hand, could encompass factors such as time, place, and person. Why is this important, you ask? Well, consider this. If we were to include individuals with similar symptoms but not actually part of the outbreak, we risk diluting the data and skewing the results. This could lead to an inaccurate understanding of the outbreak and hamper our efforts to control it. Moreover, a well-defined case definition ensures consistency. It provides clear guidelines for investigators, enabling them to follow a uniform approach. This is crucial for gathering accurate and comparable data across different regions and over time. In essence, case definition is akin to the blueprint in an architect's toolkit. It provides structure, clarity, and direction, allowing investigators to navigate the complex landscape of an outbreak with precision. It's a critical tool that helps distinguish between true cases and those with similar symptoms, ensuring accurate data collection and fostering consistency in the investigation process. By defining specific clinical and epidemiological criteria, investigators can ensure consistency in their approach and gather accurate information. This, in turn, paves the way for a more effective and efficient outbreak investigation, and ultimately, it brings us one step closer to controlling the outbreak and protecting public health. The next principle is perhaps the most challenging: field investigations. This stage of the outbreak investigation process is where the rubber really hits the road. It's a bit like the scene in a mystery novel when the detective finally arrives at the scene of the crime. It's here that the epidemiologist, our disease detective, steps out from behind the desk and into the heart of the outbreak. Field investigations provide a crucial opportunity to collect evidence and understand the outbreak's origin. It's a hands-on, boots-on-the-ground approach that can sometimes feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. But it's this detailed, meticulous work that often leads to the most significant breakthroughs. Epidemiologists, equipped with questionnaires and scientific instruments, become frontline soldiers in the battle against disease outbreaks. They interview affected individuals, learning about their symptoms, their activities, and any potential exposures they may have had. These conversations can often provide the first clues to the source of the outbreak, but the detective work doesn't stop there. Field investigators also conduct environmental testing, collecting samples from a variety of sources. This could be water from a well suspected of contamination, food from a restaurant where several people fell ill, or even swabs from surfaces in a home or workplace. Every sample, every interview, every piece of evidence is meticulously documented. The information gathered forms a comprehensive picture of the outbreak, helping investigators to piece together the puzzle. It's a challenging task, requiring not just scientific knowledge, but also skills in communication, problem-solving, and often a dose of creativity. And just like in detective work, the field investigation often involves following leads, ruling out false trails, and sometimes going back to the drawing board. It's a process of discovery, of piecing together a complex puzzle to find the source and stop the spread of the outbreak. Field investigations are the heart of outbreak investigation. It's where the action happens, where the battle against the outbreak is fought. It's in the field that the real detective work unfolds. Once enough data has been gathered, it's time for the critical phase of analytical epidemiology. This is the moment when all the collected information is put under the microscope, and we begin to connect the dots on a larger scale. It's not just about identifying who has fallen ill and where, but also about understanding why and how. Analytical epidemiology, at its core, is about asking the right questions. It's about delving into the who, what, when, where, and why of an outbreak. It's about unmasking the relationships between the disease and the various factors that may influence its occurrence. Imagine this process as using a magnifying glass. With it, investigators can zoom in on the patterns that might otherwise be missed in the grand scheme of things. It's about taking a closer look at the smaller details that paint the bigger picture. Statistical methods come into play here, forming an integral part of the analytical arsenal. These methods enable researchers to sift through the vast amounts of data, identify patterns, and establish cause and effect relationships. They help us understand the risk factors, the transmission routes, and the characteristics of those most affected. Descriptive statistics provide a snapshot of the outbreak, summarizing the data in a comprehensible way. But it's the inferential statistics that truly shine the spotlight on the unseen. They help us draw conclusions, make predictions, and identify trends. In the context of an outbreak, these statistical models could reveal which age group is most affected, or if certain pre-existing conditions make individuals more susceptible. They could highlight if a particular geographical area is a hotbed for the disease, or if specific behaviors increase the risk of infection. But remember, while numbers and statistics are incredibly powerful, they're also just one piece of the puzzle. They must be considered in the context of other information, such as the nature of the pathogen, the socio-economic conditions, and public health infrastructure. Analytical epidemiology, therefore, is not just about crunching numbers. It's about interpreting them, understanding their implications, and using them to guide public health decisions. It's about translating data into actionable insights that can help curb the outbreak and protect populations. In essence, analytical epidemiology acts as a magnifying glass, allowing investigators to zoom in on the underlying mechanisms driving the outbreak spread. The fifth principle, containment, is of utmost importance as it aims to halt the outbreak in its tracks. This stage is where the tireless work of epidemiologists and public health professionals culminates into decisive actions. It's about taking the theoretical findings from the previous stages and turning them into practical, effective measures to protect the population. Containment can take various forms, depending on the characteristics of the outbreak. These control measures could range from isolating infected individuals, quarantining those exposed, to implementing mass vaccination campaigns. In severe circumstances, it might even require the temporary closure of public spaces or travel restrictions to prevent the disease from spreading further. These measures aren't implemented lightly. They are based on a comprehensive understanding of the disease's transmission dynamics, its severity, and the population's susceptibility. Each containment strategy is meticulously planned, aiming to strike a balance between protecting public health and minimizing disruption to daily life. Containment strategies are like the shield that protects the population from further harm, limiting the disease's reach.